Sudan's civil war explained. Africa's forgotten crisis revealed. Right now, while you're watching this video, a war is raging that's killed over 150,000 people and displaced 10 million more. Yet most people have never even heard about it. Welcome to Sudan's forgotten war. Let's rewind for a moment. To understand what's happening in Sudan today, you need to know how we got here. In April 2023, violence erupted in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, between two powerful military factions. On one side, we have the Sudanese Armed Forces, the country's official military, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. On the other side is the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, a paramilitary group commanded by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemeti. Now, these two weren't always enemies. In fact, they worked together during Sudan's 2019 revolution that overthrew longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir. They even partnered in the 2021 military coup that derailed Sudan's transition to democracy. But like many power-sharing arrangements built on shaky ground, their alliance crumbled, and the result has been catastrophic. So what are they fighting over? Simply put, power and control. Both generals want to rule Sudan, and neither is willing to compromise. The RSF grew out of the notorious Janjaweed militias, the same groups responsible for the Darfur genocide in the early 2000s. The SAF, meanwhile, represents what's left of Sudan's traditional military establishment. This isn't a war of ideology or religion, it's a brutal power struggle, and ordinary Sudanese people are paying the price. Let me paint you a picture of the devastation. Over 150,000 people are estimated to have been killed since fighting began. That's more than the population of some cities, gone in less than 2 years. But death isn't the only tragedy here. More than 10 million people have been forced from their homes. That's roughly 1 in 4 Sudanese citizens. Imagine if a quarter of your country's population suddenly became refugees overnight. These aren't just statistics. These are mothers, children, elderly people, all fleeing for their lives with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Half of Sudan's population, over 25 million people, needs humanitarian assistance just to survive. We're talking about food, water, shelter, medicine, the basic necessities of life. And here's the kicker. International aid organizations are struggling to reach many of these people because the fighting makes it too dangerous. Now, if you've heard of Sudan before, you might remember Darfur, the region where genocide occurred in the early 2000s. Well, history is repeating itself, and it's even worse this time. The RSF has been accused of ethnic cleansing in Darfur, specifically targeting non-Arab communities, just like the Janjaweed did 2 decades ago. Reports from human rights organizations document mass killings, sexual violence, and entire villages being burned to the ground. Survivors describe scenes of unimaginable horror. Families executed in their homes, women systematically assaulted, children orphaned and traumatized. And just like before, the world is largely looking the other way. Here's what's truly baffling. Despite the massive scale of suffering, the Sudan crisis barely makes headlines. When was the last time you saw a major news story about Sudan? Probably never, or maybe once, buried on page 15. Compare this to other conflicts that dominate our news cycles. I'm not saying those conflicts don't deserve attention, they absolutely do, but why the silence on Sudan? Some analysts suggest compassion fatigue for African crises. Others point to the lack of major geopolitical interests in the region. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Millions suffering in the shadows while the world scrolls past. The international response has been, frankly, pathetic. The United Nations has issued statements, but statements don't stop bullets. Humanitarian funding is desperately short. Aid organizations say they've received less than half of what they need. Diplomatic efforts to broker peace have repeatedly failed, with ceasefires collapsing almost as soon as they're announced. Meanwhile, regional powers are allegedly fueling the conflict by supplying weapons and support to different sides, turning Sudan into a proxy battleground for competing interests. It's geopolitics at its most cynical. and ordinary people are dying because of it. Let's talk about what life looks like for average Sudanese people right now. Sudan's economy has completely collapsed. Inflation is skyrocketing. We're talking triple digits. The currency is virtually worthless. Basic goods are either unavailable or priced beyond what most people can afford. Food security is in free fall. The United Nations warns that Sudan is on the brink of famine, with millions already experiencing severe hunger. Children are dying from malnutrition while aid workers are desperately trying to reach them through active war zones. Hospitals have been bombed or occupied. Doctors work without medicine, performing surgery by flashlight when the power goes out, which is most of the time. Schools are closed indefinitely. An entire generation of Sudanese children is losing their education, their childhood stolen by a war they didn't start and can't escape. Both sides in this conflict have been accused of serious war crimes. We're talking about deliberate attacks on civilians, torture, arbitrary detention, and the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war. Humanitarian workers have been killed, hospitals deliberately targeted, and aid convoys blocked from reaching desperate populations. International human rights organizations have documented evidence that could eventually lead to war crimes prosecutions, but justice feels like a distant dream when the killing continues unabated day after day. So what happens next? Honestly, the outlook is grim. Peace talks have repeatedly failed. Neither side seems willing to compromise, and both believe they can win militarily. International pressure remains weak and inconsistent. Some experts warn that Sudan could fracture entirely, breaking into multiple territories controlled by different armed groups, a Somalia-style scenario that would make the current crisis look mild by comparison. The longer this war continues, the harder it becomes to imagine Sudan ever recovering. Infrastructure is destroyed. An entire generation is traumatized. Trust between communities has been shattered, and the economy is in ruins. Sudan's civil war is a tragedy that demands our attention. Over 150,000 dead, 10 million displaced, and 25 million in need. These aren't just numbers. They're human beings with hopes, dreams, and families, caught in a nightmare they didn't start. The world has largely turned away, but we don't have to. Awareness is the first step towards change. Share this video. Talk about Sudan. Pressure your representatives to support humanitarian aid and diplomatic solutions. If you found this video informative, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that aren't making headlines but desperately need to be told. Drop a comment below. Did you know about the Sudan crisis before watching this? And check the description for links to reputable humanitarian organizations working on the ground in Sudan. Remember, silence enables suffering. Let's make sure Sudan's story isn't forgotten. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.